Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Womanhood Series, EP.5. Can you believe it? It's going so quickly. I'm your host, Siobhan, and today we are talking about pregnancy and motherhood during a global pandemic. I have four amazing women with me, three mums. I've got Candice, who's a first-time mum. I've got Vicky, who's a second-time mum, and Lygia, who's a third-time mum. And then we have the wonderful Julia Ndu with us as well, who is our health visitor, who has loads of insight for us. So I'm going to bring them all onto screen. Guys, if you've got any comments, any questions, please put them in the comments box and we'll do our best to get your answers. All right, there we have the lovely Julia, Victoria, Candice, and Lygia. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
How's everyone doing? Thanks so much for being here, guys. Honestly, it's such a joy to have you. So first of all, I'm going to ask you to all introduce yourselves. I'm going to start with Candice.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really, really good. So yes, I'm Candice, as you've introduced. And yeah, first time mum in this pandemic. And really happy to be a part of this conversation.
Amazing. And then Vicky.
Hi everyone, I'm Vicky. Very, very happy to be part of this conversation too. I just had my second daughter about 11 months ago, so right in the middle of it all. So it'll be really interesting to share some thoughts with you guys today.
Amazing. Thank you, Vicky. And Lygia. Hey.
Hey. Hi guys. Yeah, I'm Lygia. So I had my third child, a boy. A year ago now. He just turned 1 yesterday. And yeah, so I'm actually really excited to hear from other moms and see how it was for them, because we probably haven't been able to be very exposed. So it's gonna be cool.
Absolutely. Amazing. Thank you, Lygia. And then we've got Julia, who's our health visitor. How you doing, Julia?
Hello, everyone. My name is Julia Ndu, health visitor for the past 10 years. Happy to be here. Happy to hear from the mums. Happy to hear it from the horse's mouth, really. What your experiences have been over this whole pandemic, having babies from pregnancy through to motherhood. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to sharing with you guys as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Honestly, it's going to be a great discussion. So to kickstart, let's talk about the pregnancy side of it, because there's some of you had your pregnancy just outside of the lockdown when we all went in, and then some of us were pregnant during. So Vicky, I'm going to start with you. Give us some insight into what your pregnancy was like, because you've had two, so you can give us a bit of a comparison.
I think with my daughter Aria, it was bittersweet, I suppose, because you like to enjoy all of your I suppose you like baby celebrations and all those kind of things, and we actually only managed to get in like a gender reveal right before lockdown actually happened. We were umming and ahhing about, should we do something, should we not? We really want to celebrate. We know that it's kind of been a difficult time for lots of people. It would be nice to come together. It would be really nice to celebrate this amazing thing that's happened. And I wasn't sure what it would be like, but it ended up being fantastic, an amazing last chance to come together and celebrate before we actually did really have a major lockdown. I think the probably the biggest thing that stuck out was the uncertainty. You become pregnant and you get really excited, and then you think, oh, I can't do that, or I can't go here, or I can't I can ask this person if these classes are going to be open. So everything was online, everything felt a little bit detached. It almost didn't really feel like it was happening. And obviously, because I only had one son, you're on autopilot, looking after your children, looking after your home. I wasn't really thinking about being pregnant as much as I was when I was first pregnant. Everything was about, the pregnancy and the baby and how your body's changing and what the baby size is. Is it a plum now? Is it is it a watermelon now? Whatever. But it kind of was like, oh, yeah, I'm pregnant. Oh my goodness, yeah, we're 24 weeks now. Oh, right. Oh, I haven't done I have to go to I have to go to an appointment. So it was all very, it felt a little bit out of body, almost like I was, observing it as opposed to experiencing it. So it was very strange. Yeah.
So all your appointments were online?
So no, this is the thing. So we started in person, fine, and then it would be a letter. You've got your appointment at this location at this time. Then it would be a phone call. Oh no, that's a telephone appointment now. It's like, right, okay. It's a little bit destabilizing because you're mentally trying to plan your time, and I need to ask this, or on the phone you don't really want to ask everything. I somehow it wasn't like that for me. I just didn't want to ask everything on the phone. I would have felt more comfortable having a conversation face to face. So yeah, it did feel a bit detached, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been an absolute surreal experience. I mean, obviously in every situation it's all very surreal, but G, I'm gonna come to you. Third time mum. Tell us a bit about your pregnancy experience in this global pandemic that we're in.
Yeah, it was I mean, the same. It was very surreal. Like, I guess because basically the exact same experience. You're not really able to focus on it, and then there's just that always in the back of your mind, like you don't want to be afraid of things, but and you're hearing in the news that it's like okay for pregnant women to be out, but then you're like, at the back of your mind, you're like, what is it? Like, what happens? Like, I don't want to make any mistakes, because it's just like, you don't want to, when it's your life is one thing. When it's like a baby, it's like completely different, isn't it? So it's like, I was like, the anxiety was like sky high, because it's like, because I was working at the time as well. Then obviously the other two kids. So it's just like, I was just trying to juggle everything. And I kind of just like had to just keep going without really taking the time to like, cause like say for instance, when, lockdown started happening and then the shop started to close. And then, so you have to make sure you have food for a whole family. Right. Yeah. And, mind you, my husband had to shelter because he's actually got sickle cell disease. So he had to. Right. And, so shopping, like, how am I supposed to get in? I'm pregnant. Like, do I take my kids? Like, I had to go at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and there was already a massive line. It was such a mish. It was just like, it was like a disaster movie kind of thing. You're watching a disaster movie and you're like, is this real? But we got through, we did it. Like, and then the baby was there and it was amazing. So that's just got through it, I guess,
Absolutely. I didn't even think about the shopping. Yeah. That was a whole madness as well in itself. Being heavily pregnant and then trying to go shopping, it's just not so one. Candice, I'm so happy, first time mummy, and in a ridiculous time, but you honestly soldiered through. So tell us your experiences, having your pregnancy.
So the pregnancy was quite normal experience because the pandemic actually hadn't hit yet. So I was having all of my appointments, everything was face to face. I was seeing my midwife, it was like, Gianna was about, I would say 4 days overdue. So it was like, okay, anything yet? Anything happen? I'll just come down, and we'll check what's going on. So for me, that was really a normal experience. I was, like you said, Vicky, like I could physically go, and I did feel more comfortable asking questions, or is this normal? I'm getting twinges, and obviously for me, I haven't experienced it before, so I'm like, am I going to labor? No. And the midwife's always like, no, you're going to know, like you'll know when you're going to go into labor. So my pre-experience was really, really normal, thankfully, and obviously had a lot of face-to-face experiences, but it was when I had our daughter that, a few days later, the whole pandemic hit. And then that's when everything was not very normal. That was a huge, huge shift. Absolutely. Yeah. As you ladies know.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? It's a blessing, really, that as a first-time mum, you were still able to at least get that part.
Yes,
normal,
all the way to delivery. I was so thankful to have, I was in the birthing center. I had amazing midwives with me all the way up until that point, just to be by my side and, you know, any advice that I needed. The center was literally a walk away, so I was waddling along, you know, to be checked, like, baby hasn't come yet, she's overdue. And I think you get to that point where you're just ready. You're like, okay, I'm ready to have the baby now. 2 days passing. So it was a blessing that I could just walk down the road and see my midwife and be checked, etc. And obviously work were really good to say, you know what, start working from home. You can start working from home at this point. You know, they had a little calendar. So I'm super thankful for that. Yeah, that I had that experience up until delivery. You know, because I know that for some people, they couldn't even have their partner in the room. You know, I have family members who also had children at that time, and they couldn't have their husband in the room until they knew the baby was coming. So there was you know, I'm not sure completely, but it was like, okay, they had to wait until they knew the baby was coming, then husband can come in. And, you know, especially not experienced it before, that would be incredibly scary.
Yes. Well, you know, that was my next question. So well done for bringing that in, because I wanted to speak to G and Vicky on this one. Because for me, I was like, pardon? What do you mean my husband might not be with me? Like, what? I can't comprehend what you're saying to me right now. Yeah. So let's go with G, because she had her son just a year ago. So love, you tell us, because you would have been a bit further into the pandemic still than me and Vicky. We're just kind of coming out of that. So tell us what it was like for your delivery.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, it was that. So he wasn't allowed in the hospital even until the midwife knew that the baby was going to come. And obviously, like, because I had to be induced because the baby was like about a week late. So it was just, we had no idea what was going to happen. So we had somebody on standby because obviously the kids were at home. And yeah, so honestly, I was just praying. I really was just praying really hard that it was going to be like, that I wasn't going to give birth alone, and that I was going to have to go through the worst bits of the pain alone. Because that's horrible. And you just like feel really like scared and vulnerable, right? But the thing was, because I was so overdue, I had to be induced twice because the first time I didn't stick for whatever reason. Like I was there in a bouncing ball, like trying to make the labor pains. Like I was like, come on, baby, let's go. Also add to the fact that it was also Dee's birthday, my husband's birthday at the time. So wow. Yeah. So it was just like, yeah, I was just really praying. And then the midwives they said that they would I can't remember how they did it, but they gave me another option of induction, and they did that, and then that really kickstarted the labor, and it just started to hit, and I was like, I think my husband needs to come now, and she was like, no, you know, I think it's going to come in 2 hours. I was like, and I just called I was like, you need to come now. And then he came, and about an hour later, the baby was born, and it was really totally fine, actually. Like God was gracious. Like I was alone for a bit with the pain, and that was really scary. Because I mean, even having given birth before, you can't, until you're actually in the midst of labor pains, you forget how painful it is, right? Yeah. It is just so painful. And then also there's not many like nurses or midwives allowed in the room. So I was just literally there in a room alone. And I was like, it was again, the weirdest moment, but then thank God, like, you know, Dee came, and then everybody, and then the baby came, and it was just like, it all happened really, really fast after that. So yeah, it wasn't nice, I'll say that, but in the end, God came through. So yeah.
Did you say that you was in the room? Sorry, did you say that you was in the room alone?
Yeah, I mean, not for the whole thing, right. But the midwife was like in and out. So she was like, because I guess because they're not allowed to like congregate and talk the same way that they normally would be or something. Yeah. I don't know what the deal was, to be honest with you, but she wasn't in the room like with me the whole time. So she would come in and say something, and then she would leave. Yeah, and I was just there like really not knowing what to do. But then just when I would need somebody, they'd come in again. So it literally was like God was just like really super gracious. Like I didn't have to like overly panic or anything. It all just came just in time. Yeah.
Wow. That's my word. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You know what? You're a soldier, G, honestly. Soldier.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just having to get through it. I think we all as mothers can understand that. Like, you don't have a choice. You just got to do it, you know?
Absolutely.
It's true. You don't have a choice. You just got to do it.
Just got to do it. There's no choice about it. Vicky, over to you, love. Tell us about your experience
of labor and delivery. It was coming to a time when I think they had figured out how they were going to work with the maternity ward and whatever, and with the birthing center. So that it was a little bit. It was early in my pregnancy that I said, "Excuse me, what? He's not going to be in the room? No, he is. Like, sort it out. Whatever you're going to do, sort it out." And obviously, we got near at the time, and they said, yes, you get one birthing partner, and they didn't really have the restriction on you have to be in active labor, like really ready to give birth before they can come in. He was allowed to be with me the whole time, but because I obviously had my son, my husband had to go drop off my son, so we arrived at hospital 2 something in the morning, flagged over a security guard and was like, "My wife's in labor, babe, here's your hospital bag, here's the baby bag,
wow
here's the wheelchair, see you later, I'll be back when I've dropped off the boy." So I'm huffing and puffing on a wheelchair, being fed down the corridor by the security guard from the outside of the hospital. And he drops me off at the maternity ward, and I'm like, "Cheers, okay, bye." And and he's, I'm trying to have a conversation with him, bless him, and then I'm like, one sec. Trying to get the breaths in and then back to the conversation. And then they drop me off upstairs. And I'm like, "Hey, labor, lots of bags, please take me to the birth center. I don't want to stay here. I need to see a pool so that I can relax because I'm having my baby in water." And they were like, "Oh, I think it's full." And I promise you, I felt my uterus like contract. I'm like, "Oh no." If you say I'm not having a pool, I'm going home. I'm going to do it in my bathtub because I can't with you guys. So she said, "I'm going to go check. I'll check. Don't worry." I was like, "Thanks." So she checked for me in the birth center. They had some space. And so she took me over, and I was like, "Okay." And then the hotel vibe kicked in, and I was like, "This is what I'm after." And it was like low lights because obviously it's so early in the morning, like the night. All the lights were off, and they had all of the kind of the LEDs and the little candles around that, the fake candles around, and it was very nice. And so I sat and was like, "Right, okay, my husband's not here yet. I don't know when he's going to get here, so let's do this thing." And it is that thing, Gia, what you were saying. Literally, you get on with it. There isn't going to be an alternative. Baby's arriving. We're not going to stop. Like, we have to keep going. So it was definitely a moment of, right, well, let's get cracking, sort of thing. So yeah, my wife was in and out as well, but she was lovely. And I really felt more able to advocate for myself second time around in terms of what I wanted. I was like, "Hey, that's in there. Yep, love that. Please bring that along. Yep, could we put the water on for the pool now? Because I want to get in. I've had enough of it."
Wow.
So it was
more organized because you knew what you wanted, because you had experienced it before. That's awesome. Okay.
Definitely. Definitely. I remember the terror took me over just a tiny bit with my first child, and I binge watched I don't know how many episodes of Wonder Every Minute.
Oh my God.
Mistakes. But there was one episode that the lady had a laminated birthing plan, and her husband sat behind her in the pool, and all the lights were off. And I said, hey, Benji, come here. Look at this. Laminate my birthing plan. Sit in the pool with me. Once I saw that episode, I was like, yeah, this is how it's great. So God is faithful. It was basically that both times. So we did well. But it was tough.
Awesome. That is powerful stuff, guys, honestly. And just to confirm, did you all have natural deliveries?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
So I need to put my 2 pence in for those mummies that had a C-section delivery then. So thankfully, like literally, I think it was like a week or two before they confirmed that my husband could come in, because I'd have been on the floor if he wasn't there with me. You know, I had the whole birth plan ready. I was like, right, this time, because this is my second C-section, emergency C-section. And I was just like, yes, it's going to happen this time. It's going to be natural. And I always gas and aired it. With my first, I gas and aired the whole thing. And with this time, I gas and aired the whole thing again. And I was just like, why? Why does it keep ending up in emergency C-section? But anyway, this time was like something else. I had to wear a mask whilst I was having my C-section. And I was just like, this is unreal, honestly. With my first, they gave me some oxygen, because, you know, you can feel them rummaging up inside you, moving things around, and it can put pressure on your lungs. This time, honestly, I was just like, I actually have to wear a mask whilst you're cutting me open. Like, it's totally different experience. But thank the Lord, everything was fine. And I wasn't in as much pain for as long as I was the first time. So I thank the Lord for all of that. But yeah, for the C-section mummies who went through that period of time, it was a toughie. And then the whole recovery after, you know, it's a difficult one, because you're having to, well, with having another child as well, you're not just sitting down resting, because you can't just sit down and rest. And everyone's coming in, and it's just everyone's having to have the protective gear on, and you've got to be aware of your wound and everything as well. But we'll go further into that later. But yeah, so I just thought, let me vouch for the C-section mummies that had to go through it as well. Right, so now on to, you've had your babies, you know, everything's gone well. We thank the Lord for that. Now we're going through the we're new time mummies again, or new times mummies for the first time. Now it's the adapting to no sleep, mental health, especially in a time of a global pandemic. I would say that we all long for our mummies during this time, or our nearest and dearest. But I'm going to go over to our lovely Julia for this one, as this is where she would step in as health visitor, you know, after the midwife has come in. So Julia, obviously this is a totally different experience for you as well, supporting mums during a global pandemic. I'm sure there was a lot of emotional need as well that you would have experienced. So do you want to tell us a bit about your experience during this time?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to commend all the women, including you, Siobhan, for having gone through pregnancy and childbirth in the pandemic. Really listening to all your experiences, I'm just in awe. And I thank God that you all delivered healthy babies, and, you know, you look forward to the future. But really well done, and congratulations to all of you guys. Yeah, as you know, obviously it's been on the news with all the pandemic and the health implications it's had. But I'm not sure if you've heard, there's a campaign that's currently going on at the moment. It's called #WhatAboutUs.
Okay.
Yeah, so #WhatAboutUs. So this was by the Home Start charity. So they've recognized that obviously a lot of parents, new moms, second time, third time parents, have this whole COVID has had an impact on their relationship with the babies, and it's caused a lot of stress. So about 68% of parents said that it's impacted their relationship, even relationship building with the babies. So the government are onto it now. There's a lot of funding. Hopefully they're lobbying for funding for the babies as well, because I think 1.7 billion has gone towards school-age children. So now the mothers and mothers with babies are saying, what about us? So that's what the campaign is all about now. So you can look at that up later on. But from the health visiting side, we go in between days 10 and day 14 after your baby's born. So obviously you give birth in the hospital, all going well, you get discharged home. So as soon as you get home, maybe the following day, the midwife will come in to see you. So the midwife will be the one checking the wounds and making sure you're healing, checking the uterus if it's retracting, etc., etc. But we go in after the midwife has kind of like finished with you guys, yeah? So we go in and sometimes you don't know. Most times you walk into the homes, you really don't know what you're walking into. So you kind of have to be prepared. Normally, in most of the boroughs, they give you an hour for this visit. So you go in, you assess the baby, you assess mom, you assess feeding. And 9 times out of 10, the common issues that we're faced with is the feeding. So, so we go in there. Most of these moms would say to us that, oh, they didn't get support in hospital with the feeding. So right from the start, moms have made up their minds that they want to breastfeed. And sometimes breastfeeding goes well with some, most times it doesn't go well with others as well. So we have to think on our feet. You know, if we have to assess the baby, if mom is kind of like down or depressed or having low moods, we have to pause, look after mom, make sure mom is in a better frame of mind, and then we switch on to the baby. So we always have to think on our feet. So I think the challenges we've been faced with this whole pandemic is that some areas the health visitors had to be deployed into hospital to help out, because obviously the shortage of nurses. Some of the nurses in hospital had to be shielding, so they had to be away from the hospital. So obviously they were short of nurses. So because health visitors are trained nurses or trained midwives, some of us were expected to go into hospitals to help out, you see. So there weren't many health visitors left. So I'm not sure about the different areas that you all had your babies, what sort of health visiting input you had. But from what I know, and from what some of my colleagues in other boroughs have said, is that they had to be called into hospital to help out with the COVID patients. So there were only a few of the health visitors on the ground. So those few health visitors didn't have enough capacity to be doing the face-to-face visit that we would love to do. So some of my colleagues have had to resort to telephone contacts, virtual contacts, and frankly, as a mom of 4 myself, telephone contact wouldn't do it. There's no way anyone can teach me or show me how to attach a baby over the phone. It's not the same. So some areas have been sending health visitors into homes. So there's a bit of inequity when it comes to the services that the women across England, or London, shall I say, are having, because some areas you would hear that the health visitors are going in every day to see the moms, and some areas, oh no, I've never seen my health visitor. I've never heard, I've never heard of a health visitor. And so, I mean, we can't really blame the health visitors because they were put under pressure. So it's having to deliver a service that you would.
Oh dear. We lost our darling Julia. And it was so meaty as well. She'll be able to rejoin us. All right, let's see what happens. On that note, because I was just writing something down as she was speaking, Candice, because you went right into lockdown.
Yeah.
I think you said 4 days into.
Yeah, literally
4 days old.
So
4 days old, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So what I wanted to ask is, how was your experience with a health visitor? Was you able to have anyone come in and see you?
Yes. So after I'd given birth to our daughter, the next day after you're released out of the hospital, a health visitor comes to see you, to see how you're feeling. So I got that part, which was great. Because by that part, there's so much change emotionally, physically, mentally. I mean, there's so much that is going on. Then you've got this little person that you've been carrying, you can't stop staring at in front of you. And so that was a blessing that, she came the next day. So I did have that experience. And she was so lovely. I've never, ever experienced a health visitor like that. She was so jolly, and so I will never forget her. But I have to say, one of the things that she said that I'll never forget, when she left, she said to me, I've been doing this for 30 years. And one thing I'm going to say to you is, motherhood is lonely. And this is before the pandemic hit, right? This is just before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
It's very isolating, and motherhood is very lonely. I want you to get a part of baby groups, meet other mums, you know, not anything about looking after the baby. Oh no, you'll get that. That's not you're a mum now. You've been a mum from the moment you've been pregnant. And I'll never forget her saying that. And I would look at her and I was like, okay. And then, you know, slowly you was hearing word of this pandemic and, you know, shut everything down. And then literally everything was completely shut down. And my experience from there was no health visitor, and being a person as well that did choose to breastfeed. It came with its challenges because there was no one there to show me, you know, am I doing this right? And obviously when you're in the hospital after you give birth, you do get a midwife come over to show you and you know, help you and ask you those questions. But, you know, once you're home, we didn't have that experience of the health visitor coming, because she was meant to have more, you know, like Julia mentioned, there was more visits that were meant to be, you know, had we been in a normal situation, but no, that didn't happen. Julia's back. Hi.
Hey.
You're back.
Technical difficulties. I don't know what happened. Sorry, guys.
It's the joy of technology. Sorry, it's okay, Julia. We're happy to have you back. And Candice, you can continue, and then we'll go back to Julia.
So I didn't have that experience apart from the next day of, you know, the health visitor coming. That was a whole different experience. I was very adamant that I wanted to breastfeed. That was something that I chose to do. And I had to fight for it, ladies. I'm going to be real. It is the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. Honestly, hardest thing, hands down. Thank God for my husband. Bless him. He came to the, you know, the classes before, so he was trying to help me and remind me of certain things. And you know, my sister also had a baby during that time. My nephew's literally 2 months younger than Gianna, but it's her third child. So she was on like all the time messaging me, you know, sending me messages, calling me, you know, giving me advice. My mum was on the phone. I had my sister-in-law come on video and literally just be like, right, you know, we did what we could, try and help me, obviously, and just sort of say, okay, how are you feeling, you know, and that sort of process. So my family became my midwives. They became my health visitors. Wow. You know, my family and my close friends, because obviously it's my first experience. I literally, you know, I couldn't have that experience of my mum physically being there, which is really difficult, or, you know, my sister-in-law's family, who, you know, are experienced mums, right, which is a blessing to have. So for me, it was like really scary. It was a scary experience, but I'm so thankful for technology. That's when technology really played its part, you know, that you can have this, you know, you can FaceTime people, they can get on the phone and they can help you through that experience. Because obviously we couldn't have the health visitors. So that was very surreal. I think surreal is probably the word that I can use, because it was not obviously how I pictured it in my mind, that no one could come round just after I've had a baby. So very different. Yeah.
Powerful. Right, Julia, back to you, my love.
Yes. So, I mean, just hearing the experiences from Candice, the health visitors have, like I said, they've got a limited time within which you'll be able, you know, should be able to do like assessing, making sure the baby's doing everything the baby's supposed to be doing. But all the antenatal classes, obviously, over the pandemic, I'm not sure whether you guys had any face-to-face antenatal class.
I did.
So during those antenatal classes, that's when you will have the opportunity to talk about feeding, because feeding is a massive part of motherhood and parenthood and pregnancy itself. So having that knowledge before the baby comes, it gives you some sort of reassurance and confidence to be able to feed. And normally when I get given the opportunity to see a mom antenatally, I go with all my gadgets, you know, I've got my little mini balls and I've got a dolly to show you what to expect. So basically I would go, if I see you antenatally, I would show you the size of your baby's stomach, which is literally like a really small marble.
Yeah.
And so if women have that kind of knowledge before they're going into labor, when that baby is born, if you asked for skin to skin, so after the baby is born, skin to skin, baby gets placed on top of you, you know, starts to learn how to feed and, you know, all the movements and everything. But some mums, for example, some mums with C-section don't really have the opportunity to have the skin to skin. So you have to kind of like relearn, or, you know, train the baby to learn how to feed. You see, so I always say that the most important contact for a health visitor and a mum would be during the pregnancy stage, because then, you know, they call it the baby brain, you know, the oxytocin hasn't really quite kicked in. So the mum is able to be, you know, able to absorb all the information that you're giving. So if you say to a mum, actually, after you give birth to your baby, you're not expecting volumes and volumes of breast milk. I think that's the understanding that a lot of women, including myself when I was first-time mum, you know, I was expecting a sudden gush of breast milk filling up the bottles, but it wasn't like that. And I wasn't taught that myself. So now that I know, I always want to meet mums. I try my best to meet them antenatally, show them what to expect, telling them that when your baby is born, the size of your baby's stomach is literally size of a really small marble. And all that baby needs at that time is colostrum. And that's that yellow liquid that comes out your breast. And that's packed with really super nutrients. That's all that baby needs for those first 3-4 days after birth. But normally, if women don't know that in advance, they're expecting a massive gush of breast milk. And when that doesn't happen, that really leads to depression sometimes, low mood, anxiety. And that is working against the breast milk production itself. So we want cortisol levels to be low, and we want the oxytocin to be up there. So initially, when it's like a shock. Oh my gosh, you know, my breast milk, I've got nothing. And, you know, in the wards, on the postnatal wards, they've always got the formula milk there ready to go. So I guess a lot of anxiety would have been prevented if moms kind of like have that foreknowledge to know that actually my baby only needs that really few mils of colostrum for the first 3 days. You know, so again, with the pandemic, there's been a lot of shortage of staff on the postnatal wards, and you normally will have breastfeeding supporters, you know, always around, ready to help out new moms. But I'm not sure whether you guys saw any of that, you see. So there's a lot of anxiety already. When we go in, some of the moms would just say, well, I've tried, you know, I didn't get any support in the hospital. I've tried, I'm giving my baby formula, you know, and most of them would want to breastfeed, but because they don't have that initial support. I mean, if you look at the UNICEF guidelines and World Health Organization, they are saying that you know, a lot of women don't breastfeed because they haven't had that initial support. So the normal advice they would give is that we need to encourage moms to breastfeed for at least for the first 6 months exclusively. But that can only happen if that, you know, that background work had been done, whereby mom is, you know, has all the knowledge that she needs to know that if I start giving formula, that's going to block the receptors for the breast milk, and it's just your breast milk supply is just going to go down. So that knowledge is really important. So when we go there, we have to spend a lot of time showing the moms how to position the baby for breastfeeding. If you don't get the position right, there's no way the attachment is going to be right. So position and attachment is important, is key.
Yes, thank you, Julia. When you spoke about the attachment, honestly, with my first, it was like glass cutting me. I don't know how. Yeah, see, you're all nodding. It was like glass. The first 2 weeks, I was just like, oh my goodness, because I didn't know. You know, I was never shown how to make sure that she latched on properly. It was only when I literally burst into tears, was low mood and everything, and I had the health visitor come over, that she actually sat down and showed me. This was obviously 8 years ago. So, and thankfully, you know what, because it was so painful, I was like, I'm never going to forget how to do this again. So as soon as I had Unity, I made sure that she tried to latch on wrong. I took her off. I was like, no, let's try again. You need to open that mouth because you are not touching me. Get on properly. It's far too painful.
100%.
Honestly. 100%. Yeah. So let's go on to, thank you, Julia. Honestly, you've got so much to share. Actually, before I go on to the next one, we have got a question. So to the panel, do you think you'd be prepared if this happened again next time round? And what do you think hospitals should do better for mothers if this happened again?
Okay. Yeah. I suppose it's different being a second time mum, and if this happened again third time, you do feel more prepared. Even when we spoke about breastfeeding just now, it was night and day in terms of how I got settled into breastfeeding with my son compared to my daughter. But I think the biggest thing that I noticed, and that I would have appreciated to see a difference in, was communication between everyone related to, you know, my antenatal care, and me, because I felt like, am I going in? Is this a telephone appointment? If something changes, who am I supposed to be phoning? When I phone this number, I don't get through. So if I have a proper issue, am I supposed to be calling the hospital general switchboard? Like, what am I doing? So it really didn't feel, it wasn't like a secure feeling of, yep, I know who I'm speaking to. I've seen this particular person a number of times, like I'm ready. It didn't feel like that, rocking up and flagging down a security guard, for example, when you're in labor. Like it just didn't feel very secure. So despite the fact they obviously had their systems in place and they had to figure out on the fly how to do things, I think as much open and honest communication as possible would have been really, really helpful.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've had a very similar experience, actually, Vicky. It was very confusing who to talk to.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd be ready to go in for my appointment. Then I'd get a call 30 minutes before. Oh, no, it's going to be over the phone. Oh, okay.
I got to the hospital and was in the hospital entrance when they called me to tell me it was a telephone appointment. Had my telephone appointment on the way home.
Yeah.
Well, no wonder you want to talk. Imagine having to discuss things about your nether regions and you're on the bus home. Like, of course,
you're literally on the bus home. Hence why I'm not comfortable talking.
No way.
Do you think that's because they were working things out as they went along? I think the first part of the question is, would we be prepared? There's no handbook of how to manage having a baby in a pandemic. It's never happened before.
Yeah.
So, we were working things out as, mums during this time of how to, get through it. So I guess I can imagine, the other, the NHS and all the health visitors and all the people. And I've got a cousin who's also a doctor, and I saw some of her journey of having to shield and be away from her mom and, to serve and do her job. So I guess, I mean, obviously, I think like the lady said, just more smooth communication and interaction. And obviously, I get it. It was a stressful time for everyone. I think for me, in that time, I would love to have just seen maybe my health visitor on FaceTime, maybe, or even like a Zoom or something. I felt like I was kind of just left on my devices. But at the same time, I get that there's no handbook of how to manage the situation. People were literally doing it as they went along, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Totally. Do you got anything you want to add to that?
I mean, no, same, because it's just like, I feel like exactly they were obviously short-staffed, like what Julie said, they were like half, their numbers were half because they were having to fight this, like people were dying. Like, so I didn't have any qualms with the people. Obviously communication, I feel like communication could have been better as well. But for me, like going into, if it was to happen again, I do think I would be better prepared just because of the anxiety of this first time. That's the only thing that was it for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's like, because you had no idea how it would affect you as a pregnant woman, how it would affect your world, whatever, all that stuff. It was more the mental aspect. And so I could, knowing what I know now, if it was to happen again, I think I would feel more prepared for that reason.
Yeah, totally. The anxiety, I mean, I'd never experienced anxiety before. And honestly, just when it skyrocketed. I didn't want anyone to come near me. I was like, no, I've got to look after this unborn baby. And then when she came, I was like, no one could come see her because I just don't know. And even just going into the hospital for checkups as well.
That felt weird.
It was ghost town. The start, like no one had been there. And ladies, actually on that, I mean, Candice, you expressed you had a normal, pregnancy, but Vicky and Lygia, the scans in your husband's not being able to be with you. Did you? I felt really sorry for my husband because he wasn't able to come in and see any of the scans. And even I remember saying to are they called sonographers? Julie, you're gonna have to correct me if I'm wrong. I was like, oh, can I at least put him on loudspeaker? Oh no, you can't have any calls. I'm really sorry. You know, there's just nothing that they could do.
Yeah.
I was just like, just all these poor dads were robbed of, because let's not forget the dads, yeah? They were robbed as well. Of the
my husband actually allowed in for this the scan. He was allowed in for that. He had to kind of like wait outside until it was so weird. It's like, why wait outside till he's ready? Because he's going to be in at one point anyway. So I thought I didn't understand that. And that's why I feel like the communication could have been a bit better, because it felt like they were just saying it almost like so that people didn't feel offended, because it's like, well, I have to wait, so you have to wait. But either way, so he was allowed in for that. So that, honestly, we thank God for that one. Because yeah, exactly, like other dads, you must feel so like that's huge, like because they don't get to carry the baby inside them. So it's these little moments that they can feel like they're actually connected to the whole situation. You know, without that, like that must have been really sad.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, how was it for you, Vicky, with the scans?
I definitely cried a little bit. I definitely was like, why is this happening? And I was going through a thing because I was like, this is probably my last baby. So if we don't get all the things we want with this baby, I'm going to be really disappointed. I mean, things have changed, so it may not be, but there we are. And I definitely think that, you know, when I was in the scan, I was like, so all of these comments that I'm making to myself in my head, I would have been saying really excitedly to Benji, and I couldn't do any of that. And then I'm chatting extra excitedly to this stranger of a sonographer who's like, wow, this is kind of weird. But I'm like, well, you're going to get all of me because I don't get my husband. This baby and all the things that I've been doing. Yeah. So it honestly was, I mean, I became best friends with everyone who ever saw me because I was like, oh, this happened, and this happened too. And also baby does this, and also this. So it was, it was a strange time, and it was really, really disappointing. And it was like, you know, how much can I pay you for like every printout from every possible frame that you've got available? Give everything that you have. So yeah, it wasn't the same. You could see his eyes light up when he did get to see a scan picture, but it's nothing like when we were in the scan together for my son, and he was like, oh my goodness, the heartbeat, oh my goodness, this, oh my goodness, he's moving. Like, it was so beautiful, and it really was sad.
Yeah, such a tough one. I mean, some people that I know who were also pregnant around those times, they actually went private. They went to these private which, and I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that? It was too late by then. But just so they could have that experience together, you know, because honestly, it's those moments where you're just like, oh, you know. But honestly, we feel for the dads, so we're thinking of you as well. Don't worry, we got you. Right, so 6-week reviews, the 6-week checkup. Did it happen? And if it did happen, all right, Vix, you're nodding. So did it happen? And did it happen on time? What happened?
I think they had gotten things together by that point. And, you know, by then you're kind of like referred back to your local primary care facility. So I was referred back to my GP, and that's when, you know, the vaccination schedule starts to begin, and they're messaging about when you're coming in for 8 weeks and 16 weeks and whatever. So when I went in, it was to my GP after a couple of visits to the hospital for them to weigh her and check how she was feeding and etc. But by then we were almost in a rhythm, if I'm being honest. So I felt happy and comfortable. probably the number one reason for that was breastfeeding was going okay, compared to super different from sobbing at day 3, not knowing what in the world was going on with the feeding and who to turn to, even though I went to feeding classes. So 6-week checkup was fine. Everything was cool with the baby, thank God. And because we were settled in and she was feeding really well and she was gaining weight and she looked really strong and she was happy, it was fine. But I definitely, it was almost like I was on, I had my calendar and I was like, I need to call them today to remind them that they're seeing me in a couple of days. I need to call them in a week to confirm if my appointment has been booked for. But I just had it down because I was like, I can't guarantee that I'm going to be seen. So I was probably in there a bit more often than I would have liked to be, but I didn't want to miss out on those things because I know it drops off as soon as vaccinations are done. You don't see anyone really after that, and you can't really have a conversation with how your baby's getting on. So it was fine, but I think it was because I was on it.
Yeah.
You was pushing them and like sort of reminding them and okay, what's happening? Yeah.
Genuinely, because I was a little bit upset by obviously getting my face-to-face appointment changed to a telephone appointment by the hospital. I didn't want the same thing to now just continue on through the whole your postpartum season. I didn't want that to be the case. So yeah, I just got on it.
That's good. That is good news. What about you, Candice? What was your experience? Did you get a 6-week?
Yes, I did get a 6-week. That was like, okay, so the doctor that checked our daughter had a massive mask. Like that was very surreal. So I mean, it wasn't like a normal mask. It was like one of those, like, I don't know, underground. I can't describe it. But it was something from like Batman or something. I don't know, but it was like a proper, like a gas, right? You know what I mean, ladies? Not the wearing now. I'm talking the thick mask.
That's
it, those ones. And I remember he was saying, well, your daughter might cry because every baby that's seen me today has cried.
Wonder why.
Looked at him like this. She just looked at him and her little eyes, he was like, I can't believe she's not crying. I was more scared. His whole identity just went into this mask because it was so, it highlighted we are in a pandemic, this kind of thing. So I think that distracted me, that he did checkups and, like you said, they talk about the vaccinations and they're checking baby's movement and, how mum is, they ask questions how mum is. But yeah, I will never forget that. I'll never forget the doctor's mask. That was like, wow, okay. Yeah, we are in a pandemic.
Can I ask you a question, Candice? Yeah,
please.
I just want to know if you and everyone, if you felt comfortable saying, if you didn't feel okay, did you feel like you could say, I don't feel okay? Because I feel like mum guilt, obviously, but I feel like you're just supposed to say, fine, everything's fine,
100%.
Regardless of whether you feel fine or not, because I didn't want to be there for any longer than I needed to be there.
Yeah, you wanted to get out.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Yeah, fine. Because if I'm not, then I'm going to be here even longer.
Yeah.
And I don't know, okay, thankfully, overall, yes, it was fine, and I was okay. But you are still kind of reeling from an incredibly scary time, and your baby was inside you before. So if you really needed to run or do something where you could protect your baby, you just close your front door. You don't leave. You do whatever you need to do. Like, excuse me, no. But when the baby's out and people are still like, oh, you've got a baby. I'm like, yes, I have a baby.
Yeah, it's a real thing. People, absolutely. And that, even like you touched on it, Siobhan, it was scary because you wanted to protect your baby. And obviously everyone wants to see your baby. You've just had a baby, and obviously they couldn't in that time. But even after restrictions lifted, I was thankful that people were like, are you okay? Like, how do you feel? How do you want to meet? Because some people just like, I'm coming around. I'm like, no, you're not.
Are you?
Are you? Because they're excited, and I get it, right? They're excited, and it comes from a place of love. But obviously, no one, unless you've been on that journey of having a baby in this time, a transition of emotion to get confident and comfortable to get to that place, right? Where you're like, okay, yes, let's meet. It takes time.
Yeah. So true.
Absolutely. That is so true. So true. G, what's your experience? Did you get a 6-week checkup?
Yes, I did get a 6-week, but it was late, and it actually caused a lot, like kind of a lot of problems because in my family we have big heads, right? Most of my kids have had big heads. So my son, his head was like bigger than most kids would be at his age, but also he was a couple weeks like past 6 weeks. He was like two and a bit months because it just taken so long to get around to him. So I think that caused a lot of problems when I was having my meeting with the doctor, because that panicked them, and then I ended up having to go to hospital. Was it once or twice? It was a couple times, I think, just to make sure that his head was all right. Just get it seen to. He was fine. He just has a big head in the end. So, you know, but yeah. So that was actually really nerve-wracking because, like what you guys just spoke about, like when somebody asks you if you're all right and you're like, yeah, I'm fine. Also, I tend to do that because I'm like, it's probably pride, but I don't want to admit if I'm struggling. You know what I mean? Like, someone's like, are you doing okay? I'm like, I'm so fine. You don't even know. When I'm totally not fine at all. And so, yeah, that was for me. I was kind of always writing this line of like, trying to have this face. I'm like, yeah, I've got 3 kids and I'm doing it. It's totally amazing. And then deep down, I'm like, is my baby's head too big? Is it okay? Like, is he gonna be all right? Like, am I gonna get COVID on the way to the hospital? I don't know. Like, because I had to be out and about a lot. So it was just kind of like, it was all this extra stress. And then it's like, you don't want to be vexed at the people for just doing their job. But then it's just like, why does it have to be so late? Like, oh, so yeah, it was, there was a lot of emotion like wrapped up in this particular 6-week check for me. But in the end, I got it. Everything was fine. You know, we move on. So yeah.
No, awesome.
I was actually thinking, just as you said this about my favorite boy's head. We had a Converse thing for Aria where they said her head measured normal, but her torso measured too small.
Oh, wow.
So then I was like, Lord, what are you saying? So they gave me extra scans, and like 2 extra scans, and then they were like, maybe the 36 or something week appointment. They were like, I'm going to take you to this person who's going to discuss induction with you, because if you haven't had this baby by week 39, we will be inducing. And I was like, pardon? What? Yeah, and you know, and I didn't mention it before because I'm thinking, in the back of my mind, I'm like, it was this overkill, just a tiny bit, because they're a teaching hospital and they wanted to be on top of everything, and it's a pandemic, so let me be extra. Right. Or was it that they were actually concerned? And so I just prayed, and I was like, Lord, no such thing. I'm having my water birth. Everybody mind your business. It's fine. But you know, you still don't know, and they're telling you these things, and you're like, you know, I'm asking them, how do I make her bigger? How? Explain it in detail. How I make her bigger right now, so that I can go home and do that thing. And they're like, no, you can't. I'm like, so why are you stressing me out with this? Can you leave me alone? Because I can't deal with this right now.
Yeah. You don't need the cortisol at this point.
At this point, you know, we're laughing right now, but whoa.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing, honestly. I mean, with mine, like G, my 6 weeks didn't happen until she was 18 weeks. And honestly, I was stressed because her umbilical cord wasn't quite right. I'm still having pain from my C-section. I'm like, are these things I'm feeling normal? Calling them, oh, you're just on the waiting list. You're just going to have to wait. Call them again. No, sorry, you're still on the waiting list. You're just going to have to wait. We'll give you a call. And it got to the point where I just went into a meltdown. I was like, I need to know that I'm okay. I need to know that my daughter's okay. And my husband just called up and he was like, look, you need to make this happen. There was no option for a no. And he got me an appointment at 18 weeks. But I was just like, this isn't right. And I was speaking on a chat. I don't know if you've heard of Peanut, the app, where they're supporting other pregnant women and new mums.
Yes.
There were women who hadn't had a 6 week and then 9 months. in, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. And they've had C-sections as well, and I'm like, I was having a meltdown because I want to know, like, is my womb going back to normal like it's supposed to? Am I healing properly, kind of thing? I'm getting these pains on my right hand side. Is that normal? Oh my goodness, honestly.
Is this the secret thing about second time and plus mums? Because I don't, because you know they ask you, is this your first baby?
Yeah.
Is this your second baby? And then you can see, oh, second baby, we'll see you 8 times, not 10. Or come with it then, all right?
Honestly, yeah. It's been a whole different emotional experience. It's emotional anyway, having babies, but in the pandemic, it's like, wow. It's very, very testing. I've got another question. So to Julia,
Okay.
what would you do to make things better for mothers if this happened again? And what sort of complaints did hospitals receive from mothers? Oh,
Okay, so just hearing your different experiences, I could really empathize. I mean, it's almost like a postcode lottery type of thing, because you will hear one set of women saying that they get all the services. You know, we normally would offer 5 mandated contacts. So we'd see you antenatally, would see you a new birth, would see you at 6 weeks, we'll see you when the baby turns 1, and when the baby turns 2 years old. So those are the 5 mandated contacts that we're supposed to give every single parent in the UK. Now, that doesn't always happen. Some areas would have all 5 contacts. Some areas would be lucky if they have 2, some 3, and some just 1. So just hearing you, for example, Siobhan, saying that your 6-week check, was that with the GP or was that with the health visitor?
yeah, that was with the GP.
Right, so you're entitled to 2 6-week checks. So there's 1 6-week check with the GP, and there's a 6-week check with the health visitors. You see, so these are the sort of things that we would, yeah. So did any of you guys have a 6-week check with the health visitor? No. Right, okay. Well, those are the complaints that's we're having a lot of complaints now for some mums who have not even been able to see their GP for the 6-week check. So what the GPs are doing now, because they overwhelm themselves, you know, they've got a lot of, you know, COVID patients and dealing with all the vaccination and everything going on. So the GPs are combining the 6-week check and the 8 weeks immunizations for the babies. So they would only see you once. So they won't see you at 6 weeks and then at 8 weeks. They'll do the 2 together. So they'll get all the immunizations out of the way. So the baby would have the 8 weeks immunization, and then 12 weeks, and then 16 weeks. Sometimes they're running a bit behind, but sometimes the parents have to chase these appointments. So the complaints that we're having now is they're not seeing the health visitors. Mind you, there's only a few that are doing face-to-face. For example, I wouldn't call the borough I'm working for. I'm doing contract at the moment. But I was actually told just last week that I did the highest number of face-to-face contacts during the pandemic.
Wow.
And I thought, wow. And I tell you, it wasn't easy, but I was putting myself in their position, thinking, if I was a first-time mum, how would I want to be treated? You know, so I always put myself forward. So, you know, rain, shine, snow, I'm out there doing the visits. The one thing I found challenging was the PPEs. So with this whole pandemic, so you have to have a plastic apron, so over your coat, and then you have to have a mask, and then you have to put the visor over the mask, which steams up every time you open your mouth to say something, it steams up. So you're trying to, you know, clear your vision, and then you've got the gloves. And most times my hands will be sweating inside the gloves, but you can't say to the mom, do you know what, I need to go. They're in the middle of, you know, you're in the middle of trying to support them how to breastfeed. And the mom, if the mom's tearful, you have to spend the time. So most times I walk out the home just soaked with sweat because I'm covered in PPEs from head to toe. So some of the moms are making complaints that a lot of complaints that we're seeing is that they get rushed out of hospital after the birth. So they haven't had any breastfeeding support or feeding support. They've complained that they've not been shown how to. I mean, back in the days when you give birth in the hospital, they show you how to bath the baby before you leave. Now is, are you okay? You fine? Yeah, go. Because obviously they're short staff as well. So we're having a high number of complaints about the service that they receive on the postnatal wards from the hospital. And we're having complaints about some of the services we offer as well, because we're not able to see all the mums face to face. So those are the complaints that we have coming through, and I'm sure there's more to come. But you have to put yourself in their shoe, in their position, because especially the first-time mums, I think that they've been impacted the most, because they've got nothing to compare it with. They've gone in there. You could read all the books in the world, you can go through all the social media posts, but nothing would prepare you for that first-time experience. So in certain areas, you have the hospital offer what they call birth reflections. So that's something you guys can look into. For example, if you've had a traumatic birth or traumatic post-birth, so you could actually see someone face to face and help to talk through your experience. And it's almost like a therapy. So do look into that. So some hospitals are offering it. So just ring up and ask for referral to the birth reflection service. So that's something that would be useful for any of you. Yeah.
Amazing.
That's great. Thank you.
That is good to know. Yes, thank you so much. I've just looked at the time and I'm like, wow, we're done. It's over. There's so much more we could have spoken about, but honestly, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much. Oh, and I just want to shout out Julia, actually, because when I didn't have access to nobody, honestly, Julia, is this normal? Julia, I'm not feeling very good. Julia, I'm just crying all the time. Like, honestly, she's been amazing. And she was because obviously none of us were able to get our babies weighed either. So Julia was going to weigh my little one for me as well. But then there was the whole, you're not allowed to visit anyone. So it didn't happen. But honestly, you are a legend. It doesn't surprise me that you're the highest visiting health visitor, because you really take your job seriously and you just have a heart for everyone. So thank you so much, honestly. Yes, and ladies, thank you so much. It's been so wonderful. Guys, thank you for all your comments as well that have been coming in and for engaging with us for over an hour. If you do have any questions still, you're more than welcome to submit them. And if we need to do another one, ladies, we might have to do another one, because there's still more to be said, really. So if you want to see another one, please message us and let us know any questions, any specific questions, and then we'll aim to get back together again at some point. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. It has been a blessing, honestly. All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.
So thank you, everyone, again for joining. It really has been phenomenal. And until next time, with our next topical discussion. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.